Hello, Savannah. Hello, Savannah. And welcome to another edition of Kandily Kesha. Tonight, I am so excited to bring to you candidates for House District 165 here in Savannah, Georgia. We have some intrepid candidates who are vying for the post left vacant by the late Mr. Mickey Stevens. And we want to send sincere condolences to his family and friends, and pray that they have some semblance of comfort as they continue to remember his life and legacy. With that, we're going to hop right in. Again, I'm so happy that these candidates said yes, and we are happy to host them on this platform so that our viewers and listeners can get a good view of who they will be going to the ballot box for on November 2nd. Mark your calendars, November 2nd, special election. And this is to fill the seat of Representative Mickey Stevens, and you all will be, we will be looking to see who's on that ballot again in just a few short months after that, I believe. So I'm going to go to former Mayor Edna Jackson first and ask her to tell us a little bit about why she was inspired to run. And the same question will apply to Mr. Lang as well as Ms. Kent. And before you answer that question, we just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what inspired you to run. What have you been doing in the past or currently that is preparing you for this work?
Mute your button. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Kesha, can you unmute her for her?
Can you unmute her from your end, Keish?
You heard from my end.
I can hear Kesha. I can't hear you.
There you go. We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay, great. All good.
Oh, but we lost her. What happened?
Okay, I'm not sure, but I'm sure she will chime right back in here shortly. We'll give her a call. In the interim, we're going to go, I have you all sort of kind of in alphabetical order. And the last time I did my alphabets, I think, Mr. Lang, you're next. So let us know what inspired you to run, a little bit about yourself, and what it is that you have been doing in the past as well as presently to prepare you for this work.
Well, I don't mind going, but I think K comes before L. It does it? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
Miss Kent.
That's okay, darling.
Y'all know the phone fell, right? So I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to hold this.
Mayor Jackson, your phone fell, and I don't know my ABC.
Why you said that?
You'll see when you watch the rerun.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so listen, we're going to throw it right back to you, ma'am. We're going to get right into this interview again.
Okay.
We want to know what inspired you to run, and what is it that you have been doing in the past as well as presently that prepares you for this work. And Ms. Kent, you'll go after Mayor Jackson. I'm sorry about that.
That's not a problem.
Oh, that's all right. First, let me say what inspired me to run. As you know, when Mickey became ill in November of last year, he called and asked if I would come because he wanted to serve one more term to see and to help him run his campaign. I got along with a group of additional people like Regina Thomas, Linda Bryant, and some others, and we decided, and my class, Mickey and I have been friends since first grade, all the way through high school and into college. He wanted to do it, and we helped him to do it, and we were very pleased, not knowing that his illness was still taking the downturn. Mickey and I sat and talked for a number of occasions of some of the things that he wanted to do, and one of them was reapportionment. In my early years, under the tutelage of Gene Gadsden, Mercedes Wright Arnold, Curtis V. Cooper, Gwen Good, and a lot of people, we used to draw lines. Back then, the legislators would come and work in the community to get the community to help draw the lines. So I was very familiar with that, and I am very familiar. Then after uh, uh, we thought Mickey had resigned, I was called by Regina and some others of us were talking to say, who can do this? Who can do this? Who can run? But of course, he did not resign. And so there was no need to try and have a campaign at that time. I was contacted by Al Scott and some other leaders in the community and asked if I would serve the unexpired term of Mickey, if I would run for that, because these are crucial times. And as you know, my life goes all the way back to my teenage years up until today when it comes to being involved in politics. At first, I said no. But I do think that because of the service that I can offer and the kind of person that I am, that I have a lot to bring to the table when it comes to looking and drawing lines for this district. This is a very peculiar district. And I think I know I've lived in the district since 1971. So I'm quite familiar, even after it was drawn several times in the past. So that's why I'm out here, because I want to be of service. I want to be of service and hopefully to be a consensus builder with all of the other members on the legislative delegation. So that's me. My friends asked me why. Pardon?
And with that said, Mayor Jackson, tell us with regard to the special district, who can expect to see the names of these candidates on the ballot? Which area is covered?
Okay, there are approximately 20-something boxes in this area. This area goes from Hutchinson Island all the way into this area that we're in now, the third, the second part of the sixth. It is just scattered all over everywhere. So the main thing to do is to see how you can get all of this together. There are not a lot of boxes in some areas, but in the second and the third, it's basically where the majority of the boxes are.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, we want to thank you for your service and your many years in the community. And if you would hang with us for just a few more minutes, a couple questions I want to cover are related to, just so you know, as your name comes up, the hotel motel tax, our charter related to a strong mayor system, any bills that you are interested in proposing, port fees or container fees, and the notorious hotel motel tax. And so next up, we have Ms. Kent. I want you to tell me what was your inspiration for running for public office, and what have you done in the past, as well as what are you doing now that makes you prepared for District 165?
Well, currently I have not changed. I have not stopped what I've been doing over the past, I guess several decades. My son is now 30 years old, and I've been working since before he was born, still working in the backgrounds. I don't do anything for recognition. I do what I do and keep on moving. A lot of times I've had some people in the past say, well, Ms. Kent, you don't do what we tell you to do, so you would never win a seat. Well, that's fine and dandy by me, but I use them to get my jobs done. Nevertheless, so if I need something done from a constituent, I go to those public officials to get that job done. So I continue to do that. I continue to work in the community day in and day out, getting things done as they should. I have worked closely with Representative Mickey Stevens in the past. If I can't get something done and I need his assistance, I've called him everything from education to community issues. And if I needed them done, I give him a call. He gets it done for me. Call me back, say, Miss Ken, it's been taken care of. I say, oh, I love you. Thank you very, very much. He said, one day you'll be sitting in my seat. I say, thank you very much, Mr. Stevens. I love you for that. But I never thought about it that way. I just want to get things done for our constituents in this community and make sure that all the families are taken care of. My motivation for running in this seat right now at this time is, one, we've got so many issues. We've got poverty. We've got so many people are being pushed out of their homes and pushed further and further away outside of the city of Savannah. That's enough of all of that. There's, again, you say there's the revenue that should be staying in within the city limits needs to be stayed here. The matter of the redrawing of the map, this particular area, 165th, needs to stay as is. It does not need to be redrawn. It needs to stay where it is. Right now, you're talking about it incorporates a huge area. We're talking Pinpoint, Sandfly, Nottingham, Bacon Park, up and down La Roche, all of East Savannah, Hutchinson Island. We're talking Runaway Point. It covers a whole lot of people that we're unaware of. I've got the map sitting right here, as a matter of fact, on my wall over there. So it covers a huge district, and it does not need to be redrawn. It does not need to be touched. And I'm praying to God that they don't do it before this election is over, so that somebody, hopefully myself, can be sitting at that table and say, hey, look, leave this district alone, leave it as is. It's been well represented for many, many years, starting with Senator Thomas, who is a supporter of mine, family. I love her, and she's always been there for me, and I've been there for her. Representative Senator now, who's now Senator Lester Jackson, and Representative Mickey Stevens. It's been well represented, has always been well representative, and I want to continue to see it well represented. My biggest fight right now, we want to see poverty get rid of, we want to see crime get rid of, then we need to start with minimum wage. We need to see something done about that. And yeah, I've made a big stink about it and said I want to see it at $48 an hour. You might not want to put it at $48 an hour, but guess what? We can negotiate that rate. But if the people we elect into office really want to see crime get bye-bye, really want to see poverty go bye-bye, then let's negotiate what we're paying these people to get up and get out of their beds and say you want them to have a well-lived life, we're talking about pay scale. If you want to see that happen, then let's do right by the people. And accountability needs to be there. I don't need nobody to give me accountability, but I want them to make me accountable. But my mother taught every one of her children, make yourself accountable, so when they come to get accountability from you, they don't have to look hard.
Correct. Thank you so much, Ms. Kent. Ponder some of those other questions I have coming around to you. Mr. Lang, again, thank you, sir, for joining us and answering your question with regard to your inspiration and what it is that you're doing now and what you've done in the past. I also want you to throw in here, because you were formerly with the elections board, what people need to do to make sure they will be on y'all's ballots. Mr. Lang? I'm forgetful, so I had to throw that in there. You know, I get my ABCs and stuff.
Alderwoman Carter. Can you hear me?
I can,
yes,
sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again for having this forum for us to be able to talk about some issues and some things that are concerning to our district and to the state of Georgia. To former Mayor Edna Jackson and to Ms. Sabrina Kent, thank you guys so much for everything you've been doing in the community, and so much for that you've shown me and done for me. Whether you know it or not, I've watched both of you, and I'm so appreciative of the opportunity just to be on this call with you all tonight. First, let me say that I was born right here in Savannah, Georgia. When I was born, my biological mom was on drugs and alcohol, and my biological father was incarcerated. So unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet them. When I was born January 22nd, 1994, and on January 26th, I was placed directly into foster care. There were no foster homes here in Chatham County, and so they sent me to a place called Toombs County, which most of us would know by Vidalia, Georgia. and I stayed there for a little while. But the parents that were there could not adopt me because I was a little infant and they were a little older, so they didn't really kind of want to, deal with that. Then they sent me to another place called McIntosh County, which isn't too far from Hinesville and in the Liberty County area. Um, Unfortunately, those parents were a little too old too, so they didn't want to take that leap and adopt me. And then I was brought right back to Chatham County off of Magazine Avenue over on West Savannah. And I was adopted from a foster home where the foster mother's name was Mrs. West. And I was adopted by two wonderful parents, Thomas and Joanne Lang. My dad, Thomas Lang, was a longshoreman for over 40 years, working for ILA Local 1414. And my mom was a registered nurse at Candler Hospital, where she worked with Dr. Castrini in the gastrointestinal department. Unfortunately, when I was 13, my mother passed away. She passed from cancer. So it was kind of just me and my dad. And then for a while, I actually went back to Vidalia. My father, as I got older, I realized that my dad was not only dealing with him being a lot older. He was born in 1936. So him being, much older than I, obviously, he was dealing with trying to cope with the death of a wife and trying to raise a 13-year-old. And I'm sure just raising a 13-year-old in itself can be a challenge. And so I was lashing out, and I would drive the car without a license. I would drive a car without being on the insurance. I would rebel. And my way of being close to my mom was driving her car, her Lincoln Navigator, or cooking in the kitchen, which I still do today, which is a form of therapy for me. And so by doing that, my father sent me to the Mel Blount Youth Home in Vidalia, Georgia. And I was so blessed to be in a structured environment where I not only became like a part of the family to the Blounts, but they treated me with so much respect and showed me so much discipline and care that when I came back after my 8th grade year, I went to Southwest Middle School for my 6th and 7th grade year. Went to Windsor Elementary for my elementary school education. But when I came back to Windsor Forest High School, I joined the ROTC department and became a cadet with ROTC for all 4 years of my high school years. I would actually even wear a suit every day or almost every day to school. And that was something to say. But ultimately, I also wanted to be more involved. And it was in high school that I first ran for office and ran for school, my class president, my class office. And so I became class president, and I was class president for all 3 freshman, sophomore, and junior year. We couldn't do it my senior year because at that time, the baccalaureate, the IB program, the IB program, International Baccalaureate Program, had just gotten started. And so our advisor was now the new advisor for the IB program, so we couldn't do that. But I still stayed engaged and was president of FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. And while also in high school, I also interned with Brett Bell with the information department with the city of Savannah. I would often be in the office with Ms. Diane Reese, the city clerk, and I would literally, and Mayor Jackson could tell you, I would literally hang around City Hall. I would always be around there, just asking questions, just learning as much as I can. And I remember being with Mayor Jackson when we revealed, or when we were exposed to the first electric car parking lots in the garage downtown. We were both there, and we saw those together. And I still have that picture, and I still have that memory. But I say that to say, because I want to get the elephant out of the room early on, that this race will not be about generation against generation. This race will be about who has a solid vision for the future, who has goals, and who wants to, all of us wants to see our district do well and want to see this region do well. And I refuse to let anyone pit myself against Mayor Jackson or against any other candidate because at the end of the day, we need each other. And whether I win or whether Mayor Jackson wins, I'm going to be there for her, or whether Miss Sabrina wins, I'm going to be there for them, or whether Clint wins, I'm going to be there for him, because that's how we should do as a community. We should be there for each other. What ultimately, very briefly, what ultimately got me involved in running is I did intern for Representative Stevens for many years, and I saw the legislative process up close. I started as a freshman in college, and actually I interned for Senator Jackson when I was 16. And so I started with the legislature actually when I was 16, but I didn't actually get with Representative Stevens until I was about a freshman in freshman or sophomore college. And while I was up there, I absolutely learned so much. One of the things I learned was the legislative process up close. And so as we get further along in this conversation, I'm sure we'll reveal some things that we want to talk about. But again, I thank you, Alderwoman Carter, for the opportunity. I thank Mayor Jackson for everything that you've done. And I want to tell you personally that I admire you, I love you, and I respect you. And no one is going to make me talk bad about you in any way. As Miss Sabrina Kent, I truly appreciate everything you have to offer, and I can't wait to hear the great ideas that you have. So with that, Alderman Carter, thank you again, and I'm just here to be here.
Thank you. My apologies for interrupting. I was chiming in to say, don't forget to tell people how to make sure they are registered to vote, because we know we are dealing with an issue where individuals are being purged from the voter rolls. So can you really quickly tell our listeners how to make certain their name is on the ballot? I'm sorry, that they are registered to vote, actually.
Yes, ma'am. And to the other candidates on the call, if I missed, please chime in to correct anything I may say wrong or add to what I put out. But one of the first things I think we all want to make sure that citizens understand is that the last day to register to vote in this election is October 4th. That's the absolute last day you can register to vote in our election. Early voting starts October 12th. The earliest that the voter registrars will be able to send out absentee ballots is October 11th. And election day will be November 2nd. For those individuals who will be in our race, I'm sorry, Mayor Jackson wants to.
You're muted.
You're muted, ma'am.
You're muted. There you go.
May I add to that? There are a number of organizations here in the community that are trying to reach out to individuals to make sure that their names were not purged from the list. So hopefully, if anyone has a problem, they will get in touch with them. I know they can make contact down at my church, St. Philip AME Church. There are several fraternities, sororities that are also involved. Now, wait, may
I have actually suggested to a lot of people that they go to Eisenhower and make sure they fill out everything, because if any errors occur, they're going to direct them to them.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Ms. Carter.
Yes, ma'am.
As I told you, I had another engagement, and that call just came through.
Okay.
Can I say a couple of other things? And I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to get off the call.
Okay.
One of the things that we have to be, all of us that live in this area, over the last 4 years, gentrification has taken over.
That's right.
Particularly on the east side of Savannah, and it is now moving to the west side of Savannah. Those are the kinds of things that we have to make sure as we look at the maps that we see where our people are, where they're being moved to, and if they're going to be served. The closest representative to us, to our area, is Representative Petrie. And he's just across the water. Mm-hmm. As you know, we have colleges and universities in this area that we must try and protect. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to run for this. And I have another reason. I just think that we need to nurture our young people. I would not be where I am today had others had not seen something in me that I didn't see myself. I would love to see another young lady up there in the office. We've not had anybody. Since Regina, you had Diana Harvey Johnson, which was the original person. Yeah, and I would love to see someone going up there and being involved. Antoine, that is not to say anything against you, because you give service as well. But I'm involved in some activities that deal solely with women, like WIN, that prepare women to run for office. You were about to ask something, Kesha, and I wanted to give my opinion on it. So you were about to ask a question about the form of government,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
kind of government. If you look back into the history, when we had a strong mayor form of government back in the 40s and early days, they found that that did not work, that there was too much going on, that people were not being served, and that the aldermen were not being used. I am always in favor of the mayor council form of government, because with that, you can build a team and improve what is in this community. I've always believed in that, but I also believe that sometimes you have to be that consensus builder, and which is so important. When you look at what is happening here in our community today, I was talking to one lady. She has a personal care home, and there are people that she cannot get services for because of their illness. It's not covered. You think about what our government has done, our governor has done in not accepting funds from the federal government that could come into the community to help us with our health care issues. And there are a lot of them. So I just wanted to. Yeah, and one of them, and it's your baby, and I know that you are so concerned about it, and others should be concerned about it. We should be concerned about people that are being raped. We have to be concerned about young people that are getting pregnant. We have to be concerned. We're an older community. We have to be concerned about our elderly. And yes, I include me on that, but I'm still up here. But we have to make sure that their services are there for them. And as I look at what they're doing now, we're losing out. So I wanted to add that. And to say, why I want to do it, I made a commitment that I would run to serve the rest of the term of Mickey Stevens. That is a commitment that I made.
With that, Mayor Jackson, I want to thank you for making time for us. But just before you go, just because I want to be fair and balanced, I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in on one or two of these issues that is important to me as a current councilwoman. But also, I want to give consideration to having another forum, if you will, closer to Election Day. I was reluctant to have each of you come on one at a time because it doesn't serve much of a purpose when I have so many other topics to cover in the span of a month or so. So with that, the port container fee, when we talk about consensus building, we know that we cannot build consensus unless we are effectively communicating and articulating the issues that have been prevalent in our community for decades. And a term that I use very often is the winners taking all. And when I think about the winners in that regard, I think about the ports, I think about the universities who do not pay taxes, and I think about the hotel motel tax situation that we're in. Which of these do you want to tackle, the port container fee or the hotel motel tax? And give me your final words, and then we'll finish with Ms. Kent and Mr. Lane.
Thank you. Let me address the port. The port is owned by the state, but that does not keep us as a body of elected officials of negotiating with them to try and get some additional funds.
Yes, ma'am.
You can do it. It should not be just the legislators. You see, people have a misnomer that when you go up to the legislature, you're only there for 3 months. No, your job continues after that. It's a year-round job. So I would like to see us get together with all elected officials that are affected by this. And let's sit down at the table with the members that are appointed by the governor, and let's give them our concerns and see if we can come to some agreement. Our men and women are working that port, which is a blessing. I remember when they weren't making any money, they're making a lot of money. So those are the kinds of issues. I'm talking about employment. I'm talking about people getting together and doing what we need to do. That is all I have to say. I'm sorry I've taken up so much time, and I do welcome an opportunity to come back and be a part of your show.
Well, and you can be a part of it as well. If you would give consideration or have members of your team view this video, this Facebook Live after the show, and maybe answer some of the questions in the chat if you are inclined to do so.
So much. Now let me get on this other call.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And y'all have a wonderful evening.
Yes. Ms. Kent,
Yes.
tell us, are there any particular bills you are anxious to champion or any specific issues you want to advocate for as the district representative for 165?
Well, just like I said before, my main issue right now is getting more money in the hands of the people as far as talking about hourly salaries, because that to me will decrease the crime, will decrease a whole lot of things in the city. And it may not happen across the board around the world, but my concern is with Chatham County. My concern is letting us be the model city for around the world. There may be some other issues on the table. I'm ready to tackle those with my colleagues when I get there. But my main issue right now is making sure that we get Savannah on track, is making sure that we get Chatham County on track. They may not want to start at $48 an hour, but let's start at $28 an hour. That's a livable wage. And I say to all of those people who got big fat pockets, who sit at the table and wait on these waiters and waitresses to come stand at their table, close your eyes for 5 minutes and put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, can you live off of $10 or $11 an hour? And let me help you understand what I'm basing that off of now. I'm basing that off the fact from the time that I came out of school in 1976 to today's year of 2021. And if the government had been fair and gave $1 every year since 1976, minimum wage would be $48 an hour. But because they were not fair, we are where we are today at what, $7.55, and they struggling to get it to $18. They don't want to sign off on $18. Are you kidding me right now? That makes no sense to me. But yet the big retailers are making billions per quarter. And if you calculate up billions per quarter, at the end of the year, that comes out to $1 trillion some dollars. Do you know how to write trillions down on paper, Alderwoman? Because I sure don't.
Well, I just proved I didn't know my ABC, so I've never been good with numbers.
You feel me? I'm just like, I don't even know how to write that down. But I figure if we as the middle class and the poor people can accommodate all of these big businesses and allow them to make billions per quarter, and the government can take our tax dollars and help them along to continue their businesses to grow, and they're making money off of the stock market, the least they can do is to give us a livable wage. Because there's no way you can expect a single parent, whether it's a male or female, to provide for 2 and 3 children, especially growing children, and continue to put food on the table, pay rent, or pay a house note, and have transportation. If you want to stop crime, and you want to decrease all of that, then that's where we need to start. And
Well,
then
we
everything else will fall in place. And to answer your question about some of these, like the private college, SCAD, I love SCAD to death. I love what they've done to our city, but it's time for them to start paying some taxes. It's time for them to give us a percentage of a tax incentive to Chatham County going forward, because a lot of the beautification that they've done has pushed a lot of our people out of the communities. That's the part of the gentrification that has gone on. And if they're going to take off different areas of our community, and they can't incorporate the minorities into that community that they're taking over, then that's a problem for me. And it should be a problem for every one of our representatives, whether it's from city council, the county commissioners, all the way up to the state. That's a problem. They're not paying
certainly the wage issue and gentrification are huge issues in our community.
Yes.
And we acknowledge that and are disappointed to acknowledge it because we generate the most money for Georgia, only second to Atlanta. In addition, we have a booming and huge tourism industry where our people should be paid more, but you would be hard pressed to find one person who works within our hospitality industry, particularly those who clean toilets and make beds, who make above $10 to $11 an hour. And what we can do here locally, while we can't do very much by way of the state statute, that's y'all's job, we can leverage our power, our authority, and our influence as elected officials to encourage our partners who essentially thrive on the backs of taxpayers here in Savannah, but we're not engaging in that. So it would be nice if those of you who are vying for this post would give consideration to lending that type of weight to those efforts. Mr. Lane, tell us, sir, what bills are you interested in? Is there any particular legislation you're excited about and that you're just chomping at the bit to get to the State House?
Well, again, thank you again for having us, and I appreciate the opportunity. Ms. Kent has given a great deal of topics to think about, including minimum wage, which I believe is her main goal, is to increase the minimum wage, which is a noble goal. And I think it's absolutely important that we do that, but we have to do it in a very responsible way.
Of course.
An absolutely great goal. For me, I think that it's absolutely important that we understand that the legislature's constitutional job is to pass a balanced budget. And when we talk about money, that is the number one goal when we get to the legislature. It is to pass a balanced budget. And we understand that anytime you talk about money, you're also talking about individuals who get a piece of that pie. When we delve down a little bit further and talk about how we divvy up money, the person who's going up there as a legislator has to be willing to listen to all sides and listen to people and come to a consensus with other people as well. But the first thing you have to do is understand that it's money and everyone wants a piece of the pie. And you have to come together with your local officials, your local delegation, number one, but also your local officials, and talk about the priorities, talk about the goals, talk about the things that you want the future to look like. And then how can we apply the dollars that we get from the state budget, and how can we get some money from the governor's budget to move us forward for those goals. For me, education, economic development, public safety, and voting rights are among my top priorities. When it comes to education, I think we have to continue to fully fund our public schools and protect them from being privatized. We have to also make sure that we give educators the tools they need and empower parents and respect the diverse needs of all of our students. We have to also strengthen pathways to debt-free graduation at every skill level through expanding HOPE to tuition-free technical college, need-based financial aid, and additional programs. These are things that will be economic incubators that will allow our citizens to be able to have a great start. For me, if I did not have financial aid, I cannot tell you that I probably would not have been a graduate of Savannah State University, whether it's the bachelor's or the master's. I think it's important to understand that with that degree comes a little bit more money in your pocket. And so in order to do that, you also have to have programs that are funded. That goes to another issue that I was talking with another group about when it came to the casino bill, and we want to talk about that because that is not a dead issue. The casino bill, allowing casinos in our state, with Savannah being one of those main places that they want to place a casino. We have to look at the pros and cons of that. I've been in the legislature for over a decade in terms of being an intern and being a legislative aide, and I've heard the arguments of that. Oh well, the tax money coming from the revenue coming from the casinos will go towards education. Well, I have a couple of issues that I want to make sure that I understand first. When we divvy up that money, when we collect that money, what are the criteria that we're going to say that a student has to meet in order to take a part of that pot of money? Because sometimes and many times the criteria is so specific that it takes out a whole group of individuals or group of students who may not be in a school district that has a lot of a great education, or they may not have the resources in terms of equipment, books, things of that nature that other districts have that give them a leg up. So now they get a piece of that pie because they have higher GPAs or they're going towards private schools. And I don't have an issue with private schools. What I have an issue with is how do we divvy up and make the money diverse, equitable, and making sure students from lower income families actually have an opportunity and not just going towards students who are getting scholarships to private schools because they play football and they bring home champions. That's great, but that's not the end all be all. And we're having so many young people slip through the cracks. When we talk about education, we're also talking about and looking forward to the future. What does education look like after COVID? When we look at our students in looking at whether or not they're ready to go to the next level, whether they're reading on the grade level that they should be reading, we got to look and see, are they prepared to go to college? And then if they get to college, when they get to college or go to technical school or go into the workforce, are they prepared? Are they reading on the grade level that they should be reading on? How can we as state legislators invest in our students and invest in our local school system? What resources do they need in order to make sure our students are prepared for the future? We can't talk about economic development if we don't talk about investing in the skills, investing in the education for our future workforce. Then when we talk about economic development, we have to talk about investing in Georgia's infrastructure and education systems to create jobs, improve transit and support small businesses, and bridging the skills gaps. We have to make sure that we're making, like I said, with technical college being free, we have to make sure that we are building a funding source for those opportunities. Now, I understand that some may want to chime in. And Alderwoman Carter, please let me know if I have a little time because
I don't want to make this a debate style. I want to give you each as much time as possible. Fortunately, ATR has given me limitless time tonight. So I want you to be able to cover your points, but I also want to be able to get my questions in as well. And I'm glad you made a point about the casino proposal.
Yes,
or proposed legislation for casinos specific to our 204 corridors and or Hutchinson Island. Where do you stand on the casino piece? And I would like to know from you as well, Ms. Kent.
Well, if I may, Ms. Kent, I'll briefly state my stance. At the point I'm at now, I have to continue to look at the pros and cons. Because on one end, and as we negotiate with other legislators, we understand that the Republican Party is in control of the State House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. And so we're going to have to make sure that we're working across the aisle to look out for our home base. And so for me, I'm looking out on two stance. The pros, on one hand, it will build revenue for education. But on the other hand, with the cons, will that attract certain environments such as poverty, crime? We have to think about those types of things before we just leap into, when we look at the lottery, yes, it's legal, but we're also looking at a repetitive behavior amongst many who are spending money on on a wish almost. And
Right.
I don't want to see an entire population of people wasting their hard-earned money on a maybe. I'd
Right.
rather they invest their money in education, or invest their money in the bank, or in, and like Mr. Kent said, the stock market, if they have the discretionary funds. But these are things that we have to consider when we're talking about bringing this type of entity. We have to look at crime, we have to look at poverty, but we also have to look. And so I'm going to continue to study this issue as we talk about it in the next session. Um, I'm going to continue to study the issue and continue to talk to our local, officials, our state, our delegation, along with our council members and the mayor and county government. We have to be on the same page when it comes to this issue, because it's not going to just affect the District 165. It's going to affect our entire region, and I want to make sure that we get this right.
Right. Ms. Kent, where do you stand with the casinos in Savannah?
Well, I'm going to double back and to answer that young lady's question. I'm not sure yet what committees I'm going to be on, but I'm studying that. But whatever I want to be wherever it's going to affect Chatham County. I want to be on those committees. But to answer your question, to double back just a little bit, Mr. Lang, when it comes to our Chatham County educational system, one of the things that Representative Mickey Stevens fought for and fought against was that our Chatham County school system is now privatized. That's the biggest mistake we ever made. And I wish it was not, but it is. I didn't want it to be privatized. I wish the state would take it back over. I do a lot of volunteering in the system now with my grandchildren being in the system. I did it with my baby boy being in the system. My oldest son never went to public school. He went to private school. There's a huge difference, but my mistake was keeping him in private school all his life. I like the public system because it gives them flexibility and the ability to have a full circle of various personalities, which you do not get in private school. However, again, I wish the state would take it back over because there are a lot of issues with it being under private tutelage. When it comes to the casino, there are pros and cons. I agree with you 100%. However, I watch people in this city right now today go all over the place and take money out of this city to gamble in Jacksonville, New Orleans, different places all over the place to take our tax dollars out of this city that could make our city grow and become even more bigger and better than what it is to other states. So when it comes to the casinos being here in Chatham County, I would prefer having them here, and we have some leverage of control. And one of the things I would like to see them do, all of these little corner stores that got those little casino slot machines in them, they need to be removed so that there's one unit of a casino versus all these little small places that's built up in these little neighborhoods and making it look horrible. So yeah, will I support it? I would, to an extent, when there's some rules and regulations set in place. Because I want to see revenue stay here in our city. I want to see our city grow to be bigger and better, and not Jacksonville and not New Orleans and not all these other cities, Las Vegas, that everybody from Savannah fly to and drive to make their cities bigger and better. And I was still losing revenue every day.
Well, I want to remind each of you, as you do ponder the issue, from where I'm sitting as a council member and representative for the citizens of Savannah, where we face 28% poverty, where we face mounting crime. We've had more African-American men die on the watch of an African-American majority council with all of this African-American leadership in Savannah. We want to remind you of those elements. The poverty, the crime, as well as the low wages. And so my issue with the casino is the fact that how is it that we can ponder or contemplate putting a pre-existing vulnerability on top of a vulnerable community? I do not think that Savannah is at a place where we can bear the capacity of all of the social and societal ills that a casino could bring, with the negative connotations that is. We can talk a lot about the positive attributes, but right now, the foundation of Savannah, her government, and her people have to be made whole in some
I
regard.
understand.
We know what the Georgia lottery was supposed to do for education in our community. And right now, today, our high school graduates are finding themselves hard pressed, not just to qualify for the Hope Scholarship, but when they do qualify, the money is really not worth mentioning. We're talking $1,000, $2,000, $2,500 at max is the average of what I've heard and seen people receive. So we just want you to think long and hard about the casino piece where Savannah is concerned. And let me just jump right into another area here with regard to lobbyists. We have expended, since I've been on council, almost $50,000 in lobbyist fees, and it hasn't yielded very much. How responsive do you think you would be to a lobbyist? Do you think you need a lobbyist to advocate for Savannah, or are you in position to do what needs to be done in terms of getting what Savannah needs? Or is it?
I'm in a position. I don't need no lobbyists to get things done here. I can do everything that needs to be done for Savannah, and I'm gonna start with making sure them wages. Y'all can say what y'all want to, but I'm gonna fight till I fall down dead to get minimum wage to at least $28 an hour, no less than that, because that's the accountability for that is going to have to work. Because listen, we have got to come out of the poverty, and Chatham County is going to have to be the model place for it. I don't care about nobody else state right now, and that's no disrespect to no other state, but right now my main concern is Chatham County. My main concern is watching us grow, watching us be the model state for every other state around us and beyond us, because we have got to come out of poverty. I want to see our people thrive. I want to see our people be able to go out and have a good time and make their children have something that they've never had before. I want to see Savannah State be what it's never been before. And all of these entities along the way that they've created all of these little pockets of money for, and we keep saying we need money for this and money for that. And listen, we've got an issue right now where there was supposed to be pockets of money for the elderly to have transportation to and from, to go to the doctor, to go get their prescription, to go to wherever they need to go. They're having a hard time getting that money because we've allotted some money for Julian Miller, our previous city councilman, to open up all of these little homes. And where's all that money that he's getting that those older people can't get to where they're supposed to get to? See, here's where we got a problem. There's no accountability to the money that's being issued out. There's nobody watching the watchers. And that's a problem we have from the state all the way down. There's nobody being accountable to the money that's being divvied out. And until we get some accountability, that's where the problem is. Nobody wants to watch the overseers, but everybody want to keep handing out money, and everybody want to say, well, we approve this to be done. But then who's watching the overseers? Who's watching all of that?
Right.
We've got problems with the child support office, but nobody's overseeing the overseers.
Well, that's what platforms like
all over the place.
We're grateful for platforms like ATR, the For Us By Us show by Alderwoman Alicia Miller Blakely, and this new wave of information that's going through social media. I think we are creating those ambassadors, Ms. Kent, but we have to do more, and more people have to engage so that they will be able to garner the same knowledge that you have, and then they will be in better position to hold their elected officials accountable. Yes. Lobbyists, Mr. Lane, weigh in on that for me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
One thing, as the state representative and the voice for the district, I am the lobbyist for this district, or we are the lobbyists for this district as elected representatives. That's the ultimate thing that we have to continue to remember, that no matter what other voices, we're not going to get rid of lobbyists in the state capitol. That's not going to happen, at least not next year. But we have to maintain that we are the advocates for our citizens, and we've got to advocate just as hard as any special interest would.
Right.
continue to do that.
Of course.
And what I want to do is just do a real quick round robin. I'm a little bit selfish in my questions. I don't know if you can tell, but these are all issues that we face as representatives of City Council here in Savannah. So in closing, what I will give each of you the opportunity to do is to just tell us about your platform, more information in terms of how people can reach out to you, how they can give to your campaign, and where you will be next, or whatever it is you will be inclined to share as we close. But 3 more points here. The hotel motel tax here in Savannah was a huge contested issue. It was a big divide on our council, primarily because myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Alderwoman Lanier advocated to make sure that there was balance and equity in the distribution of the intended increase in funds via the hotel motel tax, recognizing that a portion had to be reserved for hotel motel product and development. With that, how amenable are you to listening and assuring that we have full council consensus prior to advocating to pass a hotel motel tax for Savannah? And I also want to tell you this. I learned that we divide our hotel motel tax 50% with the chamber. Annually, we collect about $22 million. And so 10 million, 11 million, give or take, depending on the year and how well the industry does, we essentially give to the chamber. Our city manager cuts a check to the chamber, whose top guy actually makes more money than he makes. But I learned via state statute, we're only obligated to divide the hotel motel tax 60-40. The city keeps 60 and 40% goes to the chamber. So I'm not sure where that extra 10% came from, but where are you on making sure that we have all of the voices on council heard? And what would be your intent where the hotel motel tax is concerned? Ms. Kent, I'll go to you first.
Yep. I would support, I'm in support of you guys keeping that money and increasing those taxes with the hotel motel taxes. I'm in agreement with it. I heard the fight. Trust me, I heard it loud and clear. Loud and clear. Same thing like I said with SCAD. I think it's time for them to start paying their fair share of taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
Even if it's set at a certain percentage, because if you go and look out there on the website with other states where there's private colleges, they're paying a percentage of taxes to that state that they're in.
Right.
It's only fair.
Right. And, and I bring this up. And again, I stated a lot of my questions are somewhat slanted in a selfish manner. I consulted with my council colleagues, specifically my at-large colleague, Alicia Mellon Blakely. We tend to work on some of the same things. And this is important to us because with the hotel motel tax, we see this division, but we see that a lot of the city's resources, particularly our fire service and our police service, is relegated to, and I should say dedicated a lot to policing tourists and visitors to our town. And we are not counting the number of citizens in its totality, giving respect to tourists, visitors, and people who work in Savannah.
Of course.
What that translates to is less policing for our citizens. And am I advocating for more police in neighborhoods?
Yes.
Less than the extent of more police in the neighborhood and more to the extent of community policing, establishing our law enforcement, establishing relationships with our residents, as well as providing support to them, fostering ways in which we have more harmony and balance with regard to police and citizen relationships. And so that's where that question comes from. So
you're saying, I'm like you, Kesha. I'm just like you. I'm very selfish when it comes to Chatham County and our citizens. And it's all of our citizens, but particularly our minority citizens who have been pushed out due to gentrification.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very
So-
selfish when it comes to that.
So we want you to be definitely paying attention to the things that drive this, and that's things like our hotel motel tax and establishing fees for our partners like the ports. So, Mr. Lane, can you weigh in on those pieces for me?
Yes, ma'am. So the first thing I have to say is I want to make sure that I understand from each party involved what it is that their priorities are, from the city council to Visit Savannah to the chamber to any other entities that may receive funds from this tax, and that essentially is what it is. We have to make sure that I have to make sure that I understand exactly the process in which the money is going to go and where they would like it to go. Obviously, there's a statute that says it has to be used for tourism purposes, and that's where it actually was created for. And there's a cap on how much of the tax, and I think there's some discussion about moving it from one area of the tax code or one area of the Georgia code to another area in order to increase it. But that's a discussion that will be had amongst leaders in the community and making sure that number one, there's equity and the funds are distributed equitably amongst organizations, especially such as the Black Chamber of Commerce. I think that it's absolutely crucial that we look out for those types of organizations so that resources can get back to the community. But ultimately, again, I think we have to bring all the stakeholders together and understand where everyone wants and what everyone needs. And as a one member of the delegation, I can make one vote. The same thing I was able to do on the Board of Elections. I'm one vote. But ultimately, we're going to have discussions in the delegation about this. And I want the citizens of District 165 to understand I'm going to listen to all of them. I'm going to listen to anyone who has a concern about it. And I'm going to make sure I make the best decision on all the facts, not just opinion or
Most definitely.
someone's gesture. I want to make sure that we have an understanding of the facts um, of how these funds will be utilized. Again, now I will say that the majority of our district, when it comes to industry, our highest employees are the tourism industry, hospitality. The hospitality industry is the highest employer in our district. And I think it's absolutely it's a task to balance tourism, the industry itself, and protecting our citizens and our employees. And we've got to do both, because if we hurt tourism, we are also hurting our individual employees. But as we clearly saw in the pandemic, if we don't have employees, the tourism industry hurts as well, which also hurts a tax base. So we've got to fight for higher wages for our employees in the hospitality industry. So
we're right back where we started. Am I right, Mr. Lane? Fighting for higher wages.
So that they have more money, discretionable money, so that they can use for other things. But at the same time, we have to protect them and put incubators and systems in place that will help them develop and go where they want to go and not be stuck or feel like they're stuck. And I understand this. I have friends. I mean, I'm 27 years old. I have friends who are waiters and waitresses and are employees in this system. And I want to make sure that they have an ability to move up, to go to the next level, to do the things that they want to do. And I'm going to fight for that. And that's
right. And so with that said, Mr. Lane, we want to acknowledge where we are right now amidst this pandemic. I am reluctant to say post-pandemic because I feel like we're still right in the throes of it. I don't even think we're in the middle of it. No. And we see what the pandemic and COVID has done to industries, and we see what it is doing to the workforce. And that is primarily because individuals started from behind. We hear a lot of talk and criticism about people not working and taking advantage of unemployment benefits. But this is a note to self and to employers that when the market opens back up, when we get back to normal, what is it that you can do? What is it that you need from your local and state and federal government to assure that you are able to absorb a blow like a pandemic or like COVID when it comes to attracting your staffers back to work. Um, People are not in a hurry to go back downtown and clean beds, clean toilets, and make beds for $10 and $11 an hour. So we have to
Exactly.
start doing something
Now,
about this now, and putting in place those mechanisms that will assure that we have strengthened relationships with those partners that I like to call takers, and recognize that while Savannah is reliant on our tourism industry a lot, but what we have failed to do is exercise some form of balance so that we're not this one-dimensional city. Savannah can be known for more than just the red cup.
exactly.
The city where you can walk down the street and drink openly. Savannah has not only our culture is rich, but we have a lot of talented people.
Of course.
What is it that we have by way of our natural bearing capacity? What is it that we have and who we are naturally that can essentially carve out how we become identified as a city? As the second largest generator of revenue for Georgia, I think it can be more than the hotel industry. For the last decade, Savannah has been regarded as one of the top 10 cities to retire to. That translates to acknowledging that we are an aging community. People come here and they age in place. What does that mean for our workforce? That means that people cannot just have jobs within the healthcare industry and the aging community, but they can now own businesses. And so we have to be about the business of connecting with representatives who are willing and who are courageous enough to help us carve out a new continuum or another continuum. We have to be more about just tourism as we go into this next decade, if you will. Because if we don't,
we're going to lose everything.
We will lose every time. And
yeah.
So I agree. We have to be considerate of our tourism industry. We have lots of small local businesses that operate within the tourism industry, but we have to recognize the benefit that they have received for decades now.
Imagine this, Kesha, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but imagine this. We have a city with a lot of highly intelligent individuals. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking minorities, a great deal of them, highly intelligent people. We're not gonna, just think about the young people, how smart and courageous they are. They're tech savvy, they're innovative. Think about what could possibly happen if we as representatives do not get it together and start giving them livable wages and start putting some things in place that's going to satisfy them. Because if we don't, they're going to put their own little things in place and they're going to build an enterprise out of this world, and we're going to have nobody but ourselves to blame.
Well, essentially what happens is a lot of them leave Savannah.
Exactly, that too.
The next thing I have is the ports. Now, I have been told, and I wish Mayor Jackson had stayed for this question because she may be familiar since she's worked in local government for so many years. The ports, there is talk that at a point in time, we as a municipality used to assess a container fee. Where are you in supporting a proposed container fee? And are you aware of such a collection ever occurring before now?
I am aware of it. And I think that we I think that we need to collect a certain percentage of it, whether it's 5%, 2%, whatever it is. I could live with 2% of that. That's a lot of cheddar that can be put back into Chatham County. Trust me when I tell you. Now, one thing Mayor Jackson did say that wasn't true. She said those guys are making a lot of money. Yeah, they're making a lot of money, but they ain't making enough money. Trust me when I tell you. Just like everybody else, they need
in
to make
comparison
money
to
too.
the folks who own the ports, right?
Come on now.
Right.
Don't get me started with adding up doing mathematics. I know arithmetic pretty good, as the old people say, arithmetic.
That's good. That's good. Well, you can help me a lot then.
I got
Mr.
you.
Lane,
If I
of
may,
course.
I don't want to talk off the cuff about the issue. I want to make sure that I study the issue. I study what are the ramifications of doing that, of and how do we go about doing it? If we do it, how do we do it? And what does it look like? So I think before I just talk off something that I don't know 110% about, I think the most important thing for me to do is study the issue and continue to look at some of the things that could be put in place for that.
Mr.
Right.
Lang, let me help you just a little bit.
I don't want.
Let me help you just a little bit. You've got to deepen harbor. You got double the ships, quadruple the ships that's coming into our port right now. 2% of it, 2% of whatever they're making right now, trust me, will do us justice in Chatham County right now.
I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I think I just need to study the issue a lot more.
Oh, okay. You go ahead.
So what I want to say again, from where I'm sitting, and again, just know that a lot of my questions and comments tonight are essentially coming from what I have experienced in my time on council and what I see our needs are and how I think we can better meet those needs in terms of what we haven't done in the past.
Right.
I ascribe to the notion that if you always do what you always do, you will always get what you always get. And so
right now
we haven't gotten anything. We are continuing to allow developments. We're continuing to bond these deals, if you will. We are continuing to allow our partners to go by year after year after year with crumbs. You know, they throw a few computers over in the community center on the west side. They put some paint on a building that's in disrepair. You know, yeah, that's all well and good. We don't need you to do that.
We need you to put money back in this community.
What we need you to do is to pay your fair share.
Yes.
We need you to pay your fair share so that we can adequately staff our police department. We need you to pay your fair share so that we can have adequate resources for our local colleges and universities, our state colleges and universities. We need the fair share to be paid so that we can eradicate the criminal elements from our streets. You know, these are the things that we are looking at as elected servants here locally, where when you seem so far away to us in Atlanta, we want to trust that you are listening to us here in Savannah and that you have the best interest at heart. Now, with that, we're going to close because I feel like I've gone over time, but I want to give you all some more time.
If I may add to that, I want to make sure that I'm very clear on why I said what I said. It's based on everything that you just. We have to, as leaders, be able to listen, not just go up there with our own very, very strict idea of what we want, but we have to come back home and say, hey guys, what is it that you're looking at? Especially our local. For example, I have three city council members and 3 county commissioners. My job is to make sure I'm listening to them as well and understanding what it is that they need. And as a state representative, it's my job to go up to the Capitol and bring resources back down.
Right. And we want to make sure that we have your ear and that we are able to reach out to you. With that said, I know you all are vying to fill the remaining time in Representative Stevens's term.
I'm not.
How much time is that exactly?
That would be until the end of the year, then the election comes back up in 2022. So we would have to requalify again in March to run for the seat again.
It doesn't sound like you have a whole bunch of time to do a lot of what we need done here, but at least start planting the seeds. Now, I'm going to give my parting words, and then I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to give parting words. And we'll start with you, Ms. Kent, and end with you, Mr. Lang. That's alphabetical order, right? So listen, we know that the 2019 election was historic here in Savannah.
Yes.
Nearly an entire city council was voted out and a new one was ushered in. There was so much hope, so much promise, and so much excitement. People were really, for once, thinking that a change had arrived. Someone said that the cavalry had arrived. But in fact, we find ourselves right back where we were 4 years previous to 2019. So, with that stated, uh, I know that a lot of people who are sitting in the seats next to me essentially are in those seats not only for name recognition, for face recognition, but most commonly for talent and investment in community recognition.
Mhm.
There have been a lot of name dropping here today. I want to remind you that Savannah Morning News endorsed every single loser in the 2019 election. With that said, I want to encourage you to run your race as transparently, as hard as you can, and with as much truth and honesty as you can, and stick to whatever it is that you say you're going to do. You will be serving in a time where the electorate is so engaged, so bright, so intelligent, and so plugged in to the political process. You will be held accountable. You will be called to the carpet, and you will ultimately be celebrated. And I would like to be one of those local representatives who will hold you up and celebrate you. But I'm asking that as you enter into the State House, that you remember Savannah and recognize that this is a place where you live and that we are not many degrees separated. So the decisions and the choices you make, while it may not seem as if it will impact your life directly, know that it really does. With that, Ms. Kent, I want you to offer us your parting words, and Mr. Lang, you close for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Alderman Carter. I don't. Sometimes Keisha, I don't know whether to
It's
call you
fine.
Gibson or Carter. You know, I've been
I don't
knowing
know
you for
about
so long.
ABC.
I don't know.
Keisha.
I'm so used to calling you just Keisha. I don't know what to say anymore. But thank you very much. I'm truly honored for you having me on your show tonight. I want to say to everybody out there that is listening, for those of you who know me, you know that I've been in this community working behind the scenes for many, many years. Many of you have called me, some of you haven't, but those of you who have called me know that when you call, I step out on a limb. I do what I have to do. I represent you. I don't look for recognition, never have looked for recognition. I was born into a family name, a well-known family name, so I don't need recognition. I was born into it. What I do for the people. I don't do for myself. I have a strong love for people. I have a strong love for this community. Always have and will always will. My fight is for the people, and I treat them just like my own family. I love them like my own family. When I am elected into the seat, I will continue the same job that I do now, fighting for the people, fighting for the community. While I will be representing the 165th, my representation will not be limited to just the 165th. It would be limited to all of Chatham County because this city needs to be a sample city for all cities around the world. I will not change. I will be the same. My mother taught all of her children, all six of us, to make yourselves accountable. So when people come back to check me for my accountability, they will find that I've been already checked and checked twice. So I'm asking that on November the 2nd, that you go to those polls and you elect Sabrina E. Green Kent, because I will be honest, accountable, intelligent, integrity. I cover all the bases. I have nothing to hide, nothing to give other than myself. And I've always given myself and will continue to give myself to all people of Chatham County. Thank you again, Ms. Kesha, for having me here. And thank you for in the listening audience for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Kent, and thank you for offering yourself to service. And we look to talking with you again, possibly before the election. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Mr. Lane?
Yes. Thank you again, Ms. Carter and Ms. Kent. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to voters and just talk about some really great issues that are concerning that we have to talk about. And I'm glad that we kept it on issues. But I want to make sure that voters understand that we've got to work together. As a delegation, we've got to work together. And as members of a body in the House of Representatives, we have to work together. And I will continue to work with my colleagues to make sure we bring resources here at home. And I think we have to make sure we protect our education system, bring resources to our education system. We have to protect our voting rights. We have to make sure that we're looking at economic development in a holistically way, that we're not just looking at it in just for business, but we're making sure we're protecting our citizens and our workforce. But we also have to make sure that we look at public safety and that we're giving the resources and bringing resources back down from the state level to our local level. And then at the end of the day, always listening to our constituents. I will continue to listen to you. I will continue to adhere to the concerns that you have. And I will take those every day with me to the State House. And every day we go into those chambers, and every day that we're looking at bills that lobbyists are bringing to us, I'm going to be making sure I think about you and looking at those bills in a way that if it's not going to help us at home, and if it's not going to be good for Georgians, and if I can't sleep at night, I'm going to vote it down every single time. That's what I did when it came to the Tony Riley incident when I served on the Board of Elections. I did that because I didn't believe that the process in which we utilized to disqualify him was a proper process. I was told by some members of the business community that they were not going to support me because I did not go with the law and disqualify Mr. Riley. And as I tried to tell them, my vote was based on my conscience, based on my values, and based on whether or not I could sleep at night. That process was flawed, and I don't think that it would have been applied fairly to anyone, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat. And I felt that it needed to be changed. And the real conversation wasn't about whether he was disqualified. The real discussion that we needed to have was changing the law that says a person who has served their term, that have served their time, can't run for office after 10 years. That's something that I want to fight for and make sure that those types of laws are overturned on Georgia's books. Those are the types of things that made me get into this race, because I saw on the local level and on the Board of Elections as I served that there was not a lot of opportunity for me to change those rules. But at the state level, I can advocate for more, and I can advocate for you. And with that, thank you again for the opportunity to serve. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak about the issues. And if there's anything I can do, please do not hesitate to go to my website at antoinelang.com, or please give me a call at 912-547-4627, or email me at antoine.lang@gmail.com. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve you, and I look forward to you voting, and I hope that you will vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You all have given stellar presentations tonight. I appreciate the way you have gone forth with dignity, and we're looking forward to a great campaign season. And I want to applaud you for offering yourself for public service and opening yourself for all kinds of judgment and scrutiny. But I know you both very well, and I think you can handle it. I do want you to give consideration to some other topics or issues. So if you get the chance to take another stage or platform, weigh in on what your thoughts are about term limits, what your thoughts are about our strong mayor or our former council manager form of government. We want you to continuously talk about this elections process. Mr. Antoine, you mentioned individuals who have served their time, and we know that we are strongly advocating for Mr. Julius Hall, who, by the way, is still in the game, y'all. He's still in the game, so continue to root for him as well. And we want you to talk about the Chatham area transit. I was very, very disappointed at what happened to Miss Makara Malden. I didn't know her, had never met her formally, but just knew that what happened to her was just wrong. And so those are some of the issues that will fall on your laps at the state level. So if you have an opportunity, if not here, at least interject a little bit of this into your talk when it comes to some issues that we face here in Chatham County. Listen, you guys have been great tonight. Happy campaigning and stay safe.
Thank you.
Good night, Savannah. Thank you for tuning in. I love you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.